Welcome to We Are the Plan podcast. We are a circle of women creating long-term health, strength, confidence, peace, power, and connection. I'm your host, Caroline Dunn, a personal trainer, nutrition coach, and yoga teacher, and a geek obsessed with learning how to live the biggest, fullest, most joyful life, and helping you to tap into the magic within and do the same. Together, let's explore deep health, all aspects of our health, fitness, and wellness, because it's time to stop putting our health in boxes, and it's time to care about the whole beautiful, messy you. So here you'll find expert interviews, meditations, breathing, and inspiration to move towards a happier and healthier you. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome to today's episode of the podcast. And today we have Annie Neat on with us for a chat. So Annie is a psychotherapist, a yoga teacher, and a well-being coach. And she is someone who I met during yoga teacher training. I was instantly attracted to this like intuitive energy that she has, that she brings. So I'm really excited to have a chat with her today and bring what she would like to talk about to the table. So Annie, welcome.
Hello, thank you. What a lovely introduction.
Well, you are one of my favorite persons in terms of energy. You just bring it to the table completely yourself. So yeah, this is going to be a fascinating conversation, I think, for everyone.
Here, I'm very excited.
So yeah, we'll start there. So I thought we'd share a quick 3-word check-in. So 1 to 3 words about just how we're feeling really within ourselves. Do you have anything?
Tired, but content and grounded.
Nice. Mine is overwhelmed. There's a little bit there. There's a bit more to do today than I anticipated, so I can feel that in my body. There's also gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful because it's been a couple of years since Annie and I have chatted fully in depth like this, so I feel really grateful that we can be together again, and also curious. I'm excited to learn more about you and your experience, so I'm curious. Yeah, so with that, we're going to go right into the big question. Annie, I'd love to know what your story is. So from where you started, what your journey's been, and how you've ended up what you are doing now.
Wow.
Yeah. You can go back as far as you like anything that is part of your story.
It's so interesting, to be honest, because I think with everything, my story does begin a long time ago, in childhood, in school. So I don't really know where to start, but I guess my story that is now, that I have come to, is a life of spaciousness, a life of feeling grounded and very happy and secure in myself. And the way I got there was through overworking, was through trying to do everything at once, through people pleasing, and going on a big self-discovery journey. So my background is in performing arts. That's what I trained in. When I left home at the age of 18, teary faced. Can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
I have this memory of my dad driving me to Stratford upon Avon, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I went, "I'm fucking not." I'm fucking terrified. And he was like, "All right, okay." So I drove away, and I felt like I had been pooed out of the nest. And I entered into this world of the performing arts, and it was interesting, but it was a world that I very quickly knew that I didn't want to be in. It was a lot of partying, it was a lot of late hours, it was this commitment to your work I couldn't quite understand. I always wanted to be an actor, but what I really didn't understand is why I was pushing so many boundaries within myself purely to entertain people. I couldn't get my head around it. What I really wanted to do was support others. And I finished this big course that I did with the Royal Shakespeare Company, ended up being a waitress, which I learned, again, hard graft. I have to work. I have to be there every day till the late hours of the day. I was exhausted, like to my core exhausted. This is a theme. The exhaustion is a theme, you'll notice. And so I stumbled across a degree in community arts. And that is where I would say my well-being journey started. It's where working with others and connecting with others really started. I found my home in Liverpool, where I was for 10 years. And I just started this degree in facilitation. It was very vocational. I got thrown into different communities in Liverpool, and I am not a Scouser. I am a middle class white woman from Lancaster, which is a very, very middle class place, thrown into very working class scenarios with Scousers who tore little 19-year-old Annie apart in a wonderful way. And I loved it. I loved just being embedded into a community and understanding communities and being the observer, and not going in and trying to help and sort and solve, but being able to hold space for people so that they could create their own realities. So I did that for 3 years, and then, of course, went, well, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to do? So I stumbled into arts wellbeing, and that's the jobs that I had from that moment on until I decided to be a yoga teacher. So yeah, that was that kind of aspect of it. And when I came to yoga, well, I mean, we all come to yoga because we need it. And I'm sure you will agree with that. I'm sure you will. I needed it. I needed yoga. And I was sat in the office in this new job I had, running this massive mental health arts festival for young people, and going, oh, I need to go to the gym. I need to move my body. Don't know what to do. And, I'd done all these performing arts degrees where we did movement classes, dance classes. I was constantly moving. Then suddenly I wasn't. And I'm not a dancer. I wasn't going to go start going to dance classes, but I needed something. And a friend of mine turned around to me. She is also a yoga teacher now. And she said, have you ever done yoga? And I went, no. What is this yoga you speak of? And bear in mind, I was brought up in a very, very spiritual household. My mum is very, very spiritual. She did yoga. I wasn't like bothered about it as a teenager. It just wasn't on my radar. So I went to a beginner's class, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And one class a week turned into 2 classes a week, turned into going every single day, turned into going to do my yoga teacher training. Yeah, and that just then was the catalyst for that part of my career. But yeah, it's just really interesting trying to reflect back on what my story is and how it's kind of come to fruition, because actually there's so much there. There's so much there that I could talk about within that. And there's so many turning points in my journey, as there is with everybody's journey. So many, moments where one door closes, another door opens. So many moments where I've sat and gone, I don't know what I'd do it with my life, in tears, in floods, with parents or with friends and family. And then, of course, it always opens up. Something always happens. And it's just amazing to sort of try and relax into that, which is what I've done now within my business, is just go, what will be, will be. Let's flow with whatever path I'm meant to be going on. And it's worked. It has worked. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think what's important and fascinating there is, as you say, I think with a lot of people talking about their journeys and in the health and fitness space, often there can be like a dramatic transformation. That's why they're here doing what they're doing, and they're saying about how this one thing, and that's incredible. Sometimes we have those breakthrough moments, don't we? But actually, I think there's a lot of humans out there who don't have those defining moments, and actually it's a series of small changes and little doors that open that are really big at the time, that access like the next thing, but actually it's pretty messy. And it's not until you look back that you can see how far you've come.
So
what do you think to that?
Messy. It is so messy. I actually remember having a session with my therapist at the time, talking about all these things. I can't remember what we were talking about, but she went, Annie, I need you to imagine that you're on a mountain. She's like, you love climbing mountains, so let's do this analogy. And she said, you've been on this hike and you are moaning because it's uphill all the way. You're like, oh, this is so hard. Oh God, where's the top? I don't know where the top is. And she goes, I want you to pause and I want you to turn around and have a look at the view. And I want you to see the path that you've just walked along to where you've got to now. Okay, yes, you're not at the summit. You're not there yet, but look at that path. And that's life, isn't it? We're on this path and we don't often stop and reflect and look back because we're told not to look in the past quite a lot. We're always told to be in the present, look forward. But actually sometimes just going, wow, look at that path. Look where I am now. Okay, I'm not at the summit, but I don't need to be just yet. I'm just going to stand and be and reflect and go, I've done a really good job. And it is messy. It's messy. Oh, it's so messy. I have ugly cried my way through every single process. And you've got to do it. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to do it. I remember this one time in lockdown, I was at this crossroads. I hadn't seen anyone for weeks. I was out of a relationship. I was feeling really rubbish and I just cried unbelievably. And I remember it to this day because I thought, how am I ever going to feel better? And I woke up the next morning and I thought, oh, I actually feel a bit better.
It was cathartic. Release something.
So hard. It is so hard, but that unfortunately is life.
Yeah. Then can I ask you a little bit more about I guess what led you into yoga? Because it sounds like you knew there was some sort of need within you, like I would like to be moving my body more. And I'm just curious because when I came to yoga, the reason why I ventured in was for a different need from what I actually got from it. So I came in with like I need to move my body in this way. I think this would be helpful based on everything else that I'm doing. And then actually it fulfilled a need that I wasn't aware I even had. And only on reflection did I know it was missing. And that was kind of like the mind body connection, the energy of the practice, like the spiritual part of it that I didn't know about. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I completely resonate with everything you're saying. It's so interesting. I think for me, I came to it physically, very much so. There was definitely a sense of reconnection with my yoga practice. So, like I mentioned before, my mum in particular, but my family are all incredibly spiritual in very, very different ways. And as a teenager, I shunned it because I thought it was weird. And I went to, I wouldn't say it was a rough school, but it was a school that was a bit like, it's a bit woo woo. Do you know what I mean? And I wanted to fit in. I wanted to fit in, and my family, it wasn't a fitting in time. Do you know what I mean? And I think as a teenager, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to associate with that. I'm going to dress really normally and, do really normal things and pretend that I am very, very normal. But what even is normal? But as a 15, 16-year-old, we roll. Yeah. So I came to this practice and I felt better. I felt better in myself after every single session. So any anxiety about work or about life just didn't matter. And then I think I would say I got very connected into the practice when I took a really big leap with practicing with an old teacher of mine called Rebecca. And she ran a course called Pranavasha, which is a set sequence, a bit like Ashtanga, better in my opinion, but I'm sure that would be debated by many people, so we won't go there. A hard practice, 90 minutes, and I would go every single morning, be on my mat for 6 a.m, practice for 90 minutes, go to work. So I did that for a year. And okay, yes, I got really fit and healthy, but I had this moment. Oh, it was magical. It was before I did my yoga teacher training, because it was all about connecting the breath to movement. And my Ujjayi breath got really, really strong. I don't know if you'd be able to hear it on the microphone, but
yeah, like the ocean breathing.
The ocean breathing, the Darth Vader breathing, sometimes people call it, just that sound. But it got really strong and really powerful. And I remember doing this 90-minute practice, self-led, and my breath was perfect to the movement. I was sweating, but I didn't feel hot. I was present, but I didn't know. I knew what I was doing, but I wasn't, I can't explain it. I was conscious, but I wasn't conscious. And at the end, when I came out of Shavasana, I felt so light, so different. And the shift in me wasn't saying, I get it. I understand it. I'm here. And actually from that moment on, I made some big life changes. It was from that moment on that I kind of went, is my relationship right for me? Am I in the right place? Am I in the right job? Do I want to be doing what I'm doing? Does it fit me?
Yeah.
So it helped me to connect with myself. It helped me to connect with others around me. And for me, that's what spirituality is that connection.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So that sounds like almost like a defining moment that then
Yeah.
led on from a lot of questions and a lot of action.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And then I did my yoga teacher training and I met you.
And here we are.
Here we are. Fast forward many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I know that's not the end of your kind of story or journey as well. So you went through those shifts and did yoga teacher training, taught yoga for a while, and then I know you've just completed your psychotherapy training. So can you tell us more about that part of your journey? So what led you from yoga teaching through to studying psychotherapy through to now, starting this part of your business?
So they're all connected.
Yeah.
And I think really, really, really where it starts with wanting to become a therapist was going into therapy myself. Um, I experienced work-related burnout. And I did that, or that happened while I was in my full-time job. I loved my job, and I want to say that I loved my job. It's just that my job was too much. And all that happened was I was working so many hours and I was good. I was good at what I did. I was a youth worker. I was in the performing arts wellbeing, loved it. But it was a lot of front-facing work with a lot of vulnerable people. And some of that work was one-to-one wellbeing support. And they'd come in and go, "Are you my therapist?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm a youth worker." But they didn't know what a youth worker was because the youth service has been changed and shat on so much by powers that be, but we won't go there. This is not the place for that, but very interesting to know that young people didn't know what a youth worker was. So I was like, gosh, there is a need for counsellors and there's a need for therapists. So while I was doing all this support for others, things were happening in my family, things were happening in my personal life that then I couldn't cope with. So I became disenchanted with work. I didn't want to do it. I couldn't focus. I wasn't interested. I would literally do the minimum amount of work, considering I had put my heart and soul into this job. So I was a bit like, what's going on? And everybody noticed there's been a shift in me. Everyone noticed that I wasn't my normal self. And, I was very fortunate that my job offered free counselling with the most incredible therapist, the one who told me about the mountain.
Yeah.
And to say she changed my life is not an exaggeration, because all she did was hold up a mirror to my reality. I had the answers, which is what happens. Everybody holds their own answers, but sometimes we just need a little bit of support to find those answers. And she just held up a mirror and she just asked the right things. And I just remember being in these sessions and having these penny drop moments again and again. And not all the time, not every session was like that. But there was points where I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing in this? I mean, the work paid for it, but I was like, what am I doing in this job? And, is this what I want to do? And, she really supported me through quite a tricky breakup. She supported me in buying my first house by myself. And I suddenly went, wow, this is amazing. And she did yoga. She was very spiritual. And I also found that they really complemented each other. Our bodies hold our emotions, but we don't often focus on that. We focus on our emotions, our mind, and we focus on our bodies, but we don't often tie them together. I don't know about you, but I've run hip workshops where people have sobbed afterwards because they've released that emotion in their hips, in their psoas muscle, in their fascia. They just release it, and suddenly they go, oh, and they feel. But I want to be able to have the skills to support people or I wanted to be able to have the skills to support people, just like my therapist had supported me. So I went on this big sort of like transformational path, really, I would say, not to get too cheesy about it, but that's what happened. And my job we were all in redundancy, and I had the option to take part-time, so I did, so that I could focus on my yoga business. And then I just started looking at therapy courses, because I thought one way for me to quit my full-time job is to actually maybe train to be a therapist. It was something that felt accessible for me. I was done. I was done with working for other people. I was done with being told what I had to do and how I looked after people. I was just done, totally done with it. And so I found the course that I wanted to do, enrolled, got on, and just went, this is obviously the path I need to do. And I've loved it. I mean, it's been hard.
Yeah.
But I love working with clients, and I love sitting in a room with people and helping to be that mirror so they can find the answers that they've been looking for.
Yeah, which is just amazing. And it sounds like burnout was again a really pivotal experience that has shaped this path for you. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind like telling us a bit more about that burnout, as in quite often it can be hard to recognize. I think one of the things about burnout is you're so blinkers on that even recognizing that burnout's happening can be difficult. So how did you experience that? Like, if you wouldn't mind sharing, like physically, emotion. I know you mentioned a little bit about the emotions, but yeah, just what was that like as a experience or sensations for you?
So again, like you said, you don't realize you're in it until it's too late. And I think maybe if I'd been a little bit more self-aware, I would have done. I think now I can catch myself. But I was extremely tired. But because of our wonderful society and the way that we have been told that we should be, sayings like, you can sleep when you're dead, or I'm just so busy. I'm good because I'm busy. I'm tired, but it's okay because I'm busy. Well, actually, it wasn't okay. I was busy. I was too busy. And I was powering through. My body was tired. I was very thin, very, very thin. I had acne, really, really severe acne, actually, towards the end of my burnout. And I went through a breakup. I bought a house. I moved into the house. I started seeing someone, which I shouldn't have done too early, which then messed up the grief of my relationship, because I was like, what am I grieving? What am I doing? And in the end, my body got ill.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have burnout is that if you don't listen to the signs of your body, if you don't notice when you are pure exhausted to your core, and I'm not saying like, oh, I just need an early night. I mean, in your core of your being, you are exhausted. You have nothing left to give. You don't look after yourself. Or you go the other way and you just exercise constantly, restrict your diet, which is what I did. And yeah, just really not listening to the needs of your body. You just stop. Your body stops. It goes, I've had enough of this. You're going to get really poorly. And I remember it so vividly. I had moved into the house. I'd put up the last piece of furniture, and I sat on my sofa and I went, oh, I'm not well. Oh. And then I got really bad illness. And then my acne got really bad, really bad. So my body was reacting to the stress that I put my body under. And I didn't know how to get out of it at the time. I found it really difficult.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a bit more as well, if that's okay. But it sounds like our bodies do try and tell us, don't they? They really try and tell us. But having kind of experienced a little bit of this that you're talking about as well, like burnout when I was doing my full-time teaching and then building my business.
Yeah.
It's almost like, for me, I was very dissociated from what my body was trying to tell me. It's like I'd shut that part off. But I resonate with the idea of emptiness. Like, I think that was a physical, not just a mental sensation of just everything is gone. And then also, the thing that I noticed was, therefore, if I needed to keep going, I needed to put a mask on. And
Mm.
it was so empty inside, but I walk into a room of people to do my job, and therefore it felt like a very forced, face to then show up with. And that contrast between how I felt inside and how I had to show up outside, I think for me in hindsight was probably a symptom of burnout. Yeah.
Our masks are definitely. And again, this was something that's just come back to me that my therapist said to me. She said, take your mask off. Who are
Mm.
you? I don't know.
That question is the scariest one to be faced with, isn't it?
So scary because and not just when we burn out, but in life, we put on
Yeah.
masks because it's protection.
Yeah.
Whether it's from something that happened in your childhood or around certain people, you feel like you've got to be a certain way. Even the mask that I put on at school to be normal, in inverted commas, that was a mask that I wore every single day at school. And then I'd drop it when I get home and I'd be really tired because I wasn't authentically being me. And that is key. When we are not being authentic to ourselves, then there's this disassociation. We call it in counseling an incongruence. When we're not feeling into who we actually are, all these masks, all these different things. And as soon as those masks slip and we go, well, who am I? And you don't know, well, that feels really shit.
Yeah.
It
And then
feels
can I
really.
ask a question in that? So if you're experiencing burnout, it sounds like up to a point you can still be really high functioning. Like you're controlling everything. You can still be doing all the exercise and fulfilling all of the expectations, right?
Yeah, you can still be showing up. You're showing up for everyone else, but you're not showing up for yourself.
Mm.
Which means that everyone thinks you're fine when
Yeah.
you're not. When you're not. And it's not until you stop and you realize, well, deep down that you're not okay, but you do. It's high functioning. You keep going.
Yeah. And then that's really fascinating, isn't it? I think most people would probably have experience or recognize having experience pushing yourself through a certain point and then, in inverted commas, getting sick.
Mm,
Where actually, in some of the reading I've done about burnout, it suggests that actually we were sick all along
mm,
and we had this pain or this stress or these symptoms and whatnot. And actually, when we get sick, it's just that we are letting ourselves feel it for the first time, but it was there before we recognized we were sick.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's so interesting. It
Mm.
really is. And it's very much something that so many people feel.
Mm.
So many people feel. And I am I am really interested in looking kind of further back as well, because I think we are a very different working generation. But so my grandparents, for example, they, on my mum's side, they were shopkeepers, they worked constantly. And they probably also experienced these feelings, but they would never ever stop working. And we have this ingrained in us. Um, and I've spoken a lot to my mum about it because she was like, you have permission to rest. You don't have to work all the time. And I was like, oh, that feels so uncomfortable. But you're so right. We have patterns of you must work.
Mm.
That is what we're taught. And it's not just our generation, it's generational. So to start breaking those patterns it's uncomfortable, it's hard.
Yeah, I think almost like the entire way that society, the education system,
Mm,
everything is now set up that we put our worth into our job
mm,
and our
mm,
productivity and our achievement. Just you think about cycles of school years, it's
mm,
achievement. I think
mm,
it starts a dissociation with our bodies and therefore is the precursor to
mm.
things like burnout. We get to, 25, 26, and we don't know who we are or what makes us happy. And then of course we're going to fall off a cliff.
That's it. That's it. And I think for me, a big part of this connection has been connecting to my menstrual cycle as well.
Mm,
Because again, we're not taught that, but as a woman, our inner cycle and our, rhythms are so different to what we're expected. We need rest. I mean, we all need rest. Men and women need rest, but that connection into that part of actually when I'm ovulating, yeah, I can go out and socialize, but actually when I'm about to bleed, no way. Do not
Yeah.
ask me to go out. I don't want to. I want to sit on the sofa and I want to rest. I want to bring in my mind. I want to be creative. I want to form ideas. Um, and just letting yourself experience those things. I guess really it's just understanding yourself and being able to connect in, which is
Yeah.
so hard.
It is because we're not taught it. Um, so let me ask a little bit more about that. So, like, we know you're in burnout, you're not feeling okay. One of the things you did was like see a therapist at that point, yeah. But
Mm,
what are some of the other things that then you did to help recover? Like, was
mm.
listening and connecting to your menstrual cycle, was that later down the line? Was it one of the first things that happened? So, like, talk me through the ways that you came back to yourself.
Yeah, so I basically went out to seek as many options as possible to connect in. I think because I had acne, I did really go into the menstrual connection part because I was like, is this hormonal? Do I need to
Mm.
sort out my menstrual cycle? I've been on contraception for years, in and out. Is this a physical thing as well as a spiritual thing? Um, so for me, that was a bit of a game changer, really.
Mm.
Um, I also just tried to self-care as much as possible and self-nurture, which is different self-care. Self-care is kind of branded as let's have a bath and light some candles.
Mm.
But actually there's a difference with self-nurturing. And part of that was resting guilt-free
Mhm.
and allowing myself to rest guilt-free. And if that meant that I spent the whole day binge watching a show, fine. If I still felt anxious by the end of the day, fine. Go to bed. It's fine. Really accepting exactly where I was at exactly that right time. Connecting back in with nature, key. I was working in Liverpool, but in an area that was very built up. There was no nature, there was nothing. I was working with kids who had never experienced nature. And actually, what I was craving was fresh air. And so I'd go for long walks along the beach, take myself off by myself. I needed myself time.
Mm.
Lockdown helped a lot. I know it
Yeah.
was a tricky time, but for me, I lived by myself. I mean, oh gosh, there were some processes that happened, but um, there was space. There was space to stop. No one was asking me to go out and do things. I was able to find my own boundaries, and I
Mm.
was able to rest,
Yeah.
truly rest. And I mean, rest isn't just like one good night's sleep. Rest is when you haven't rested. And I mean, I don't think I've rested since I was a child.
Mm.
If you haven't solely rested, then you are
Yeah.
catching up on yourself.
Right. I think we haven't necessarily seen adults around us growing up who rested. We don't see that as a state. So it sounds like letting yourself rest with the feelings of guilt and anxiety, if needed,
Mm,
nature, time with yourself.
mm, mm.
That was big too. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, just being with people who gave back to you.
Yeah.
So I think naturally as an empath, I attract people who take my energy.
Mm.
And it's about going, well, I love them, but right now I can't be around them. I need to choose people who give my energy back to me as well.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
which is
And
hard.
if someone's not very in tune with that, I guess, how do you become in tune with it? Is a little bit more time by yourself a good
Mm,
idea so that you can then start to notice when I spend this time with someone, I feel this.
yeah, definitely. I think also notice how you feel spending time by yourself.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of high functioning people, if you spend time by yourself, then suddenly you are with yourself.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
too much, which is why you'll see that a lot of people who are literally about to just crash, they're doing everything, they're seeing everyone, they're doing it, they're constantly going. Because if they were to stop and go on a walk by themselves in nature, then they're stuck with their mind and their
Mm,
thoughts and their feelings. And that's often too hard, which is
mm,
why obviously therapy is really useful for that because you have an hour where you are talking about yourself, but with the
mm.
support of someone else.
Yeah.
Because you can tell how you feel when you've been around certain people.
Mm,
If you've had that time to kind of settle back into your own body, you can tell if you feel knackered after
mm.
being with someone, or if you come away going, oh, I feel great, I feel really
Yeah.
energized by that person. And there's certain people in my life that I see them and go, oh, my heart is full. My
Yeah.
heart is full being around you. And it just, there's a joy that I just find. And they're the people that have supported me, and I've
Yeah.
supported them.
I certainly feel that too. Yeah. And I think for me, and I know this isn't the same for everyone, it was spending a bit more time by myself that helped me tune into those energetic shifts, like with people, without people. But if someone's in the midst right now, Annie, so if someone's, either trying to still do everything, but there's burnout before the crash, after the crash, what's one thing that you'd like to say to that person? Something that you'd like them to know?
It's gonna be, it's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be okay.
Mm.
And to ask for help.
Yeah.
Stop doing it all by yourself.
Mm. Mm.
You
Yeah.
can't.
And know that it's a process.
Yeah,
As
it
you
is.
say, if you've driven yourself to the point of actual burnout, it is what I'd say months.
Oh,
Too.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Months.
Yeah.
But there's happiness on the other side.
Yes. Yeah. There's a way
There is.
forward that is more settled,
Mm,
peaceful, spacious.
yeah.
I'd say like that message of hope.
Yeah. And it's the spaciousness that's, I think, really important, because when we are in that state, life is out of control,
Mm.
and it's scary. It is really scary. And actually, and just from my experience, I remember craving spaciousness, but then when I had it, I didn't know what to do with it. But
Yeah.
it's about finding, there will be that spaciousness where there's no fear.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps if you are hearing that, sometimes it can make sense in our mind, but
Mm,
we need to give ourselves permission to let us experience that in our bodies, and knowing that that might not be straight away, and it might be a messy process to actually feel that in your body.
yeah. Which is why support is helpful, because it is
Yes.
messy. And I know it's scary getting help, but it's good. It
It's
helps.
yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Right, Annie, I'm going to hit you with some quick fire questions.
Go on, hit
Okay.
me.
Yeah, no. So, you've mentioned it before, so I know we're really on the same page of this, and that like the magic is within us. We don't
Mm-hmm.
need anyone else to fix or save us. Yeah, I think we have a huge, vast amount of resources within us for our own happiness and health. So, with that in
Mm-hmm.
mind, I just like in a couple of words or a sentence or two, something that sums this up for you. So, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self,
Mm-hmm.
give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
You are absolutely perfect just as you are.
Yeah, I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And second one, what's the biggest tool, skill, practice, experience that has helped change since then? So it's helped change you since that 18-year-old self.
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
It's a hard question, isn't it?
That is a hard question, because there are so many things, but I think
Mm.
the key one is get outside and accept yourself and be outside.
Yeah.
Because that's where you love to be, and that's where you thrive.
Love it.
Mhm.
What are some of your current favorite practices and habits to take care of yourself?
Meditation.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be too much or whatever. I know I mean, this isn't a whole podcast in itself, but 10 minutes
Yeah.
meditating every morning has been a game changer. I stop, I slow down, and then I have a cup of tea afterwards, and that is it. It's not
Mm.
hard, but it just sets me up ready for the day. And if I want more, I can have more. If I've got time for more, I can have more. But 10
Yeah.
minutes, everyone's got 10 minutes.
Before the rest of the world creeps in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love
Mm-hmm.
it. What's making you feel inspired or lighting you up right now?
Chatting with you.
Oh,
It actually is. I
Annie.
know, honestly. But as well, I just moved into a new house, and we had a full day of clearing yesterday, and now
Oh,
I'm like, let's work. I'm ready. I'm here. I'm in this space. This is my space. And my partner's obviously, but it's my space. And
yeah.
I
You've
just
settled
feel,
into it.
yeah, I feel really grounded being where we are. And yeah, and also I love chatting to you. We've got such a deep connection from our yoga teacher training. It's just, yeah, it's always magical.
Mm,
It
yes,
is.
it is. It is.
Mm.
And final one, what remains a challenge for you right now? What's feeling difficult?
Rest. Even though I
Yeah.
talk about it so much, it still is a challenge. I mean, I'm getting a lot better at it. But I think with just moving house and allowing myself to relax
Mm,
properly. I think it doesn't matter how much you do this work. I've got so much better at it. I can do it guilt-free now, which is amazing.
mm,
But allowing and making time to rest.
yeah.
Mm.
And finally, Annie, where can listeners, watchers find you online? So how can they connect with you and learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, fab. So I actually have two Instagram profiles now. So my coaching and yoga profile is at Neat Wellbeing. So that's where you can hear about classes, kind of wellbeing coaching tips, and more my meanderings of my brain. But then I've set up because my Neat Therapy is a separate business, even though they're all intertwined. So Neat_therapy is where you can find all my therapy information. There's lots of lovely tips and stuff. I mean, it's quite a new profile, so it's building, shall we say. But if you are interested in working with me on either platform, drop me a message on there and I'll get back to you.
Amazing. Annie, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Oh, it's been so lovely. I really enjoyed it. It's absolutely flown by, but it's just been so wonderful to connect with you and kind of just chat and actually think about my own journey as well. And to where I am now, because I'm actually, not to be too cheesy, I feel like I'm actually living the life that I've wanted for a really long time. And it's been a process. It's always a process.
Yes.
I'm here and it feels really, really bloody good.
Here for the process.
Here for the
Thanks, Annie.
process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. If you enjoyed it, then please subscribe and rate the podcast and share this episode with a friend to grow our circle. Plus, stay in touch with me by subscribing to my mailing list, where you'll get your free 7-day getting started plan, as well as weekly thoughts, updates, and chats. I love doing this with you and sharing the struggles, laughs, and wins along the way. So thank you so much for being here. And until next time, remember, we are the plan.